So you've got a deadline from the president, a threat that's, well, let's just say not very diplomatic, and a critical shipping lane completely locked down. The long simmering standoff between the US and Iran? Yeah, it just exploded into open conflict, and it's dragging the entire Middle East to the edge. We're going to unpack exactly how a war of words turned into a war of actual missiles.
But before we rewind to how it all started, I think it's important to start where the impact is most raw. We're looking at Haifa, Israel. An Iranian missile slams into a sixth-floor apartment building. You can just imagine it: smoke, flames, and the devastating news that four civilians, are dead. This isn't some war game scenario. This is the very real, very human cost of this conflict. Which brings us right to our first section, a region on fire. And make no mistake, these strikes are not isolated incidents. We're talking about a battlefield that is quickly spreading from Israel all the way to the Gulf states. So the big question is, how on earth did we get here? How did we get to a point where missiles are hitting residential buildings? Well, to figure that out, we actually only have to go back a few days to one single explosive ultimatum. And that brings us to Section 2, the president's ultimatum. This is really the spark that lit the fuse. The whole crisis went into overdrive because of a deadline that came straight from the White House. So let's just walk through the timeline, right? It all starts on Sunday. President Trump issues this demand for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Just a few hours later, he follows that up with a pretty intense social media post. And he slaps a hard deadline on it: Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Just like that, the clock is ticking for everyone. And here's the post itself. I'm going to read it word for word. It says, "Open the effing Strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell, just watch." He didn't stop there either. He later threatened that Tuesday would be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day. I mean, you can imagine. Language like this just completely changes the game. It poured gasoline on the fire. Now, threatening to blow up power plants and bridges, these are things that ordinary people need to live. This isn't just tough talk. There's a really important piece of context here. Under the Geneva Convention, intentionally targeting civilian infrastructure that has no military purpose, well, that's considered a war crime. So this threat instantly pushed the whole situation into a much more serious legal and ethical territory. Okay, so how did Iran respond to all this? Well, that leads us right into our third section, Iran's defiant response. And this slide just lays out the deadlock perfectly. It's like two people standing on opposite sides of a canyon, shouting at each other. On one side, you have the US saying, "Reopen the strait, now, end of story." But on the other side, Iran's not budging either. They're saying, nope, the strait opens only when we have a new system in place to pay for war damages using fees from the ships passing through. I mean, there's just no middle ground there. They're worlds apart. And Iran's response was coming from all directions, but with one single voice. The president's spokesman basically called Trump's threat an act of sheer desperation. The foreign ministry said they would defend their country with all might. And then you have their UN mission, which accused Trump of public incitement to terrorize civilians. So yeah, the message couldn't have been clearer. We are not backing down. And they weren't kidding. They didn't back down. Which brings us to Section 4, the widening battlefield. Because this is the moment the war of words becomes a real shooting war, and it's not just in one place. Just look at this. It really paints a picture of how fast things escalated. You have US and Israeli jets hitting targets inside Iran itself. And then, boom, Iran fires back with missiles striking both Tel Aviv and Haifa in Israel. But it didn't stop there. Look over here. Iranian drones hit a huge oil complex in Kuwait. And then missiles and drones hit a port and a telecom building in the UAE. This wasn't a standoff anymore. It was a full-blown regional conflict. And then things got even more personal. The shadow war that's been going on for years suddenly burst into the open. Israel announced that it had killed Majid Kadami. Now, this wasn't just any official. He was the intelligence chief for Iran's Revolutionary Guard, the elite force that runs all their operations outside of Iran. Taking out a player that high up, that's a massive blow. It's a signal that the unwritten rules of this conflict have just been torn up. So with the whole region basically on fire, you have other countries scrambling to find an off-ramp to pull everyone back from the edge. Which leads us to Section 5, a scramble for peace. Okay, so there's one main proposal on the table right now. It's coming from a few key regional players, Egypt, Pakistan, and Turkey. And it's pretty simple, really. They're proposing a 45-day ceasefire. Just everybody stop shooting for 45 days. And during that time,
Iran reopens the Strait of Hormuz. It's a lifeline, basically, and it's been sent to both Washington and Tehran to see if they'll grab it.
And it's not just them. You've got other countries like Qatar and Oman who are known for being mediators in a region. They're working the phones, flying between capitals, doing everything they can to try and de-escalate this thing and get people talking again.
So you might be sitting there thinking, okay, this is bad, but why does a conflict halfway around the world matter so much to me? And that brings us to our final and maybe most important section, the global choke point. Because the answer has everything to do with the map of how everything gets everywhere.
Right, so we've been talking about the Strait of Hormuz, but now Iran is pointing to another critical spot on the map, the Bab al-Mandeb Strait. This little waterway right here, tucked between Yemen and Africa, it's the gateway to the Red Sea and ultimately the Suez Canal. It's basically a superhighway for ships traveling between Asia and Europe.
And this is the number you really need to remember, 10%. That's how much of all global trade flows through that little region. Think about that, 1/10 of everything bought and sold in the world. If that gets shut down, the domino effect would be insane. We're talking about gas prices, the stuff on our shelves, literally everything.
Which leaves us with this pretty chilling quote from a senior advisor to Iran's supreme leader. He said, "The flow of energy in global trade can be disrupted with a single signal." And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? It's a reminder of just how fragile our global system is, how one conflict in one region can hold the entire world's economy hostage. The only question left is, can the diplomats find a solution before someone gives that signal?